Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NextGen Planners Podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm the head of marketing here at NextGen Planners. And today, I'm delighted to be joined on this episode by Fraser Stewart and Gary Stewart as well from Lyfeguard Advisor. And if you're watching on YouTube, there they are. How are you doing, guys?
Oh,
Hi. Good afternoon, Dan.
How are we both? Are we all good?
Yeah, all good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine. I'm very excited for this. I feel like ever since we first had a chat, what was it? Maybe about a month ago, Fraser, maybe a little bit less. All I've been seeing and all I've been hearing and all I've been talking about is Lifeguards. So it's finally nice to have you on the podcast and to kind of reveal what you guys are up to and to let the audience know as well, who I'm sure will find what you guys do very, very useful indeed. So for anybody who doesn't know who the guys at Lifeguard are and what they do, don't worry, we'll go through lots of it today. I am not going to try to tell the audience what you do, because no doubt I will absolutely butcher it and it will not hit home as hard as it will if you guys tell them. So can you just tell us a little bit about what your day looks like, a bit about the project that you're working on at Lifeguard, and just kind of introduce us to the world that you guys operate in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pick that. And first and foremost, Dan, thanks very much for the invitation to join you today. The story behind Lifeguard was quite a sad one. I had a couple of close friends of mine die quite suddenly. And I'm actually seen as quite a sensible guy, and Fraser can maybe make a comment about that in a moment. So those families actually asked me to come and try and sort out their estates from a financial and a practical point of view. And to be honest with you, I found the whole thing really, really quite difficult. I'd lost two close friends. That was tough enough, but actually trying to sort out the family's affairs was problematic. And why was it problematic? It's just trying to track down important information such insurance documents, pensions, share certificates, you name it, and then going through the whole probate process was difficult and not something that I was particularly experienced at, but nonetheless, perseverance in getting through it, and that's what we did. And then suddenly, the following summer, I kind of had the realization, well, what happens to my family if the same thing happens to me? And the whole idea of Lifeguard was born at that moment. And I introduced Fraser to the concept, and that's the backdrop to it. And we'll tell you more as the podcast rolls on.
Yeah, 100%. And Fraser, I mean, first of all, Gary, that's I was going to say lovely to hear, but that's the wrong phrase to use, because it's not lovely to hear, but it's lovely to hear that something so cool has been born out. Often, the best financial planners are those who've been tarnished by bad advice in the past, for example, and they never want the same thing to happen to their family, to any other family, as what happened to them. And often the best businesses are born out of some kind of adversity or some kind of uncomfortableness where you kind of realize that there's a gap there, and you think, well, why is that gap still there, and how can we fix it? And that's basically that's what businesses are there for, isn't it? Is to fill gaps. That's the whole thing why we're here. So, I mean, Fraser, probably just to bring you into this as well. What would you kind of add to what Gary said there, in terms of more like what do you guys do on a daily basis, and what stage are you at the moment with Lifeguard as well?
Yeah, no, for sure. What I'd add to what Gary said is really, because from his problem, it really started from a consumer perspective, if you like. And we were speaking eventually to financial advisors who said, hold up a minute, we need access to this information as well. And I think particularly post-COVID, when things moved, more online and more by digital channels, actually this information is really important for them to have. And therefore, kind of on a day-to-day basis, we're a father and son team. So really, we bring a nice multi-generational approach to this, trying to build tech that's working across generations. What will Gary's generation want? What will my generation want? And how can we kind of, infuse both elements into one platform so it's useful for advisors, their clients, but also their clients' kids, their inheritors, their partners. So it's something that can span generations in a nice way. And a lot of the way we've built into our marketing and our product is around that kind of multi-generational layer. On a day-to-day basis, it's hard to say 2 days are the same. It's, project management, sales, marketing, there's loads of it. But I think one of the things that we're really keen on doing is, building tech that advisors actually want. And kind of our ethos early on is to really engage all throughout, to really engage with our early adopters and say to them, well, here's the platform we've got at the moment, but what's the next thing that you'd like? What's the next thing? And let them kind of, guide our product roadmap, because we want something that works for them rather than second guessing, building something and then, we release it and they go, not really going to use that. So yeah, day-to-day it's just getting feedback in and doing various things. But yeah, no 2 days are the same.
Yeah, really trying to avoid the field of dreams as kind of like build it and they will come. Yeah. We started building it and started interacting and getting the feedback from real clients, real customers. They said, wouldn't it be great if I could do this? This would be really valuable for us. And we've been listening and acting upon that as well.
Yeah, that's great. Really good. Yeah, and thank you, by the way, Fraser, for dealing with the elephant in the room that everybody might be thinking is, are they father and son? Are they just coincidence that they've got the same surname, or what's going on here? And thank you for dealing with that as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit biased because I've actually seen this, be used by a firm. And they use it, for example, for a client, or they're starting to use it anyways, for a client portal, and also for all the things that you just mentioned there. So basically this kind of life admin in one place, which is what, I think that financial planners should really be. I think that's when you can maximize your value to your clients, is when you can effectively be irreplaceable, and then they can't imagine life without you. And I know that might sound very kind of woolly and very philosophical, but that genuinely is how the best financial planners kind of operate, is that their clients will ask them before they make any big decisions in their lives. What other profession or what other industry would say that they get asked first before their clients go on holiday, or their clients make a big decision about moving or something like that? You just do not find that. I mean, I'm not saying that like doctors and stuff like that don't perform very important roles, but it's a different kind of thing altogether, and it's really important. And I think tools like yours can really kind of cement that position as somewhere in the middle of a client's life. So maybe just tell us a little bit about the tool and kind of go into there, because what we've kind of just done is we've kind of just said philosophically what we're aiming to do, but can you guys just kind of get down to the nitty gritty of what does Lyfeguard actually do, and why do you think it's actually so important for advisors to use with their clients as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think, fundamentally it's a place for clients to go in and store information across the entirety of their lives. So a 360 view of information. So I'm not just talking finances, assets, liabilities. I'm talking everything from kind of personal documents to obviously the finances, your will, LPAs, all the way through to kind of end of life wishes and preferences. It's everything throughout the client's life that's useful and they need on an ongoing basis. One of the biggest things we try to do with it, though, is rather than just be kind of an information storage facility, is actually taking this information and bringing it to life. So a lot of that is centered around our insights dashboard, and that's connected to Open Finance, which is an evolution of open banking. So anything from, banks, investments, mortgages, loans. I don't know if I said, repeating myself there, but, that all connects in real time. And then that then gives visualizations of financial information, whether it be kind of short-term spending patterns and transactions, all the way through to kind of net worth and investment over time in kind of a longer-term view. So it's a storage, it's the access, it's the insights, and then it's kind of a really key part is the secure sharing of the information. So back to what Gary said earlier about where we started as a business, it's really important that clients have the ability to also share this information with their family, friends, trusted people. So it's not siloed in a platform that's only useful between the client and the advisor. Actually, what we do is put the client in the center. And actually, by doing that, and it's a client-centric platform, it means that the client has, utility in the platform on a day-to-day, advise it, and they're going in, engaging with it more, which means the advisor's getting richer information. Their family also has access to the information they need, should they ever need it.
Yeah, and I think just a really simple example of this, I don't know how often you travel, Dan, or do you ask your financial advisor before you do that? But nonetheless, I've got access to the whole family's passport information via their portal. So if I'm booking a trip for the four of us, I need the passport information for API, so the advanced passenger information stuff. And it's, where's the passports? Well, they're all in Lyfeguard, actually. I've got access to them online instantly. I can do those silly little administration tasks very, very simply. And that's just a good example of what you can do within Lyfeguard. You've always got access to certain information when you need it.
And just to add one final thing, Dan, is the fact we also deliver reminders to the clients as well. So when you've got you mentioned passport expiry date, or it's a MOT due date, or it's a utility bill, it's giving clients reminders. So basically, Lyfeguard takes a strain out of kind of modern hectic life. You know when you've got something to action, and you also got peace of mind that your future's secured and planned for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's so much in there that we want to pull out, and we will pull out for the rest of this episode. But I think the way I kind of tell people about it, because apparently I'm your biggest salesperson nowadays, is to because for the last few years, we've been helping advisors build documents, and one of those documents a lot of the time is. We used to call them life planners, but I think George Kinder might be a bit. Actually, no, George Kinder's a lovely guy, so he wouldn't be annoyed at us. But it's not the right term. But it's basically some people call them death books, which is terribly depressing. Some people call them when I'm gone guides. Some people call them afterlife financial plans. Whatever it is, it's that one place where you've got everything about a client. So where all their wills are stored, where all the LPAs are, where all their insurance policies are with, and it's that really, really kind of important thing that basically has a client's life on one page. And you mentioned it at the start, Gary, but for anybody in the audience who has been through anything like this, where they've lost somebody important to them or whatever it might be, they'll understand, unless they had something like this in place, how much of a strain that is, whilst you're already grieving, which grieving, to be honest, is completely debilitating in terms of it can stop you from doing work, it can stop you from eating, it can stop you from doing all sorts of different things. And then you've got to all of a sudden switch on completely because you need to call life insurance companies, you need to call gardeners to stop them coming round, you need to call it's just like this endless list where it's like somebody else is now responsible for cancelling everything in somebody's life.
Absolutely.
And cancelling something is never a nice thing to do unless you're really unhappy with the service anyways. So it's just phone call after email of just this really sad thing to have to do, and it's just kind of adding to the grief all the time. So from your experience, I mean, first, maybe you're in the best position to answer this, Gary, but how powerful do you actually think it is let's not think about the advisors for a second, and let's think about those clients, and specifically those older clients. How much peace of mind is it for them, but also how powerful is it for their families to also have this thing in one place which says, here's everything about me, if in case the worst happens, here's everything in my life in one place for you to...
No, absolutely. So I used to have an old mantra, and I'm going to bring it back to the advisor because I have one. And my wife said, I said, here's this guy's number. Anything ever happens to me, call him, because he's the guy that knows probably more about me, at least from a financial sense, than anybody else. But then I recognised actually there was a major deficit with that. He'd actually only knew a certain amount about me. So therefore I had to create the peace of mind, and that's really why Lyfeguard was born initially. I said, but interesting, but I need to make it more interesting to people. We need to make it more interesting to people in life. And we also need to make it less about death and more about being a helpful addition and tool. And as I said at the beginning here, advisors have a big part to play within when there's a bereavement, but equally, LPAs now are kind of like even more prevalent in some respects. People are lasting longer, they're living longer, but they're becoming incapacitated for whatever reason. And that's the real crux of Lyfeguard, is make it useful to the administrators of that individual, whether it happens to be the family or whether it's the advisor or whether it's a lawyer or whoever it happens to be. And that's where it becomes really, really valuable. Clearly, the eventual is going to happen and somebody's going to pass away. And that's when this thing just, comes into its own in terms of going through all the things that you mentioned, Dan. But there are so many scenarios where, and even if you're overseas and you're looking for documents or you're asked to provide a passport scan, you can actually securely send it through Lyfeguard as well. And it's all these silly little things. And I've got loads of use cases on them where you just dip into Lyfeguard, do what you need to do very quickly. In fact, I went skiing, fortunately, earlier on this year, and I was asked for a copy of my driving license and passport. I don't routinely carry them with me, So I sent them at the top of the mountain via Lyfeguard to the person that requested them. So there's a good example of a use case for Lyfeguard, for example. But just about everything, but the administration, life administration is so much easier. And the incapacitation element of it is something that we landed on quite late. It was all about the end game, but actually it's the interim game when something happens. And that doesn't mean it's a catastrophic incapacitation. It could just be an interim incapacitation when the family administration, you still have to live, you have to still manage everything that's going on, like the bills and whatever else. So yeah, use cases supreme, they're all over the place. And we'll talk more specifically, I'm sure, about how it's really useful for the financial advisor sector. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
And Dan, I was just going to add on that. I mean, that post-death experience has got even more problematic since everything's moved online with technology. I mean, actually, if you look back beforehand, it's never been simple, but it was comparatively really simple in the step that you had a will, you probably hand everything over in a folder and you say, that's it. Now we've got, things are all online, social media, for instance, when someone passes away, that's a massive grey area for what people have. They don't have access to their profile and it's closing all of that down. So for families, after someone does pass away, having this in one place is really important because the amount of accounts and things that we have as a person is growing and growing and growing as kind of the technological revolution is continuing. And that's only going to continue to kind of increase over time. And therefore, kind of Lyfeguard is a place where that's all together. The families have it. They've got peace of mind that's there. When that time does come, they know everything there and they're not searching for these documents or account numbers or, what's the username for this, X account, whatever it is. It's just, it's all there and ready to be kind of to be managed and allow them to actually just concentrate on grieving, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move away from the death element before or the post-death. I'm giggling as well because that's the way I deal with those kind of things. But like, let's try, because otherwise, if we carried on talking about that, it'd be the most depressing episode of the podcast ever. So let's look at how it's useful when people are when people are living, anyways. But it still has something to do when they pass away. But open banking. So open banking was, I can remember when it came in. I think, was it 2018, 2019 or something like that? It really came in. It was just before the pandemic, and I can remember I'd been in the profession for about 2 years at that point, so I was dead excited about it. I was like, oh my god, this is going to change everything, and I don't know what slowed it down, but it feels like we haven't really seen, or personally I haven't really seen the kind of benefits of it really until the last year or so, to be honest. I'm seeing some really cool things come out, and yours is included as well in that. But just for kind of people in the audience, open banking basically means that kind of real-time access to data from lots of different institutions to lots of different places. So for example, having live updates of what a pension value is into a dashboard, for example, which has all of your other stuff in there as well.
Yep.
But for you, from your perspective, from what you guys see and from building a tool which has open banking, what impact do you think it's had, and what impact do you think it's continuing to have right now in our profession?
Yeah, for sure. I think, to be honest, we open banking and we've moved and it's connected more institutions than ever. You mentioned pensions. Yeah, we've got investments, mortgages, loans. I think that's really important because it gives advisors real-time insights into their client's position. So rather than say, you're gathering a fact find every 6 months or 12 months, Open Finance allows you to have this in real time. So you basically, if you wanted to go into the profile and look at their finances, you kind of can do a fact find every day that's relevant and up to date. And I think that's massively important. I think it's got the ability, if used properly, to improve efficiencies as well. As I mentioned, if an advisor is going onto a platform to have a look at the information that's in real time, they're not having to, chase their clients for information, and they're not having to amalgamate information from different banks as well, which used to be the case. I mean, I'd imagine if someone had 3 bank accounts, they'd have to get a statement from the 3 different banks that they had, and then analyze all the data, try and put it together in a spreadsheet. Actually, open banking takes that away. And I think, you've got things like transactions as well. It's on that onboarding thing. You can see someone's income, you can see what their expenditure is, you can look at affordability and risk there as well. And I think, also client experience. I mean, if there's a platform that does it right, and we believe we do it really well, it's about visualizing the data in a way that's understandable, clear, and something that they can engage with and spot patterns in, so they can improve and enhance how they're doing things. Whether that be kind of, I've spent too much over the last 3 months, I need to cut that back. I can spot, these subscriptions are going out that I don't use. Or it be longer term trends where I'm saying, right, the net worth's growing nicely over time. Here's the assets, liabilities. Here's the breakdown in each one, and here's how I can improve it and work with my advisor going forward. So I think the thing around kind of open banking, open finance, and eventually open data, which is essentially connections to like utility bills and phone contracts and all the rest of it, which will be massively powerful. I think the massive thing with it is that it's got to be used properly in a way that's really, making sense of the data, make sure the data is accurate and actionable as well. And I think that's been coming through, as you said, kind of in the last couple of years, much better than it was, on the inception of it coming through in 2018.
Gary, anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I worked in a previous life in retail banking, and kind of like when it was first mooted that the legislation was coming on board, I thought, wow, this is just going to change the world, a bit like yourself, Dan. But it was kind of like really slow. There was a lot of the major banks didn't want to do it, and you can kind of understand why. Because they're all about client protection, whereas you've got all these nascent startups that are going, how's this data useful? How can we make money from it? But what Fraser's described is absolutely spot on. It's kind of like, it's all very well having an open banking connection, but it's really making it valuable, usable, interpretable, and actionable. It's kind of, what are we going to do with this stuff? And just to add to Fraser's point, if you kind of routinely see a few £1,000s sloshing about available cash, the advisor should be picking up on this and saying, there's a better use of that money rather than up until very recently getting 0.1% or less languishing in a current account. So that there is real value and actionable value from an advisor and from a client point of view.
Definitely. I mean, from a client, a couple of things from a client's experience point of view. First of all, if it was, let's say, for example, I know that you guys are looking at fact finds and building fact finds, not having to put in how much you spend on, I don't know, council tax, or worst of all, not having to sit with an advisor. And I see so many financial planners still doing face-to-face or live, effective hard fact finds with their clients. And I'm not going to tell people that that's bad or good or whatever, but from a client, I certainly wouldn't as a client want to sit there and tell somebody how much money I spend every month on my phone contract or something like that and spend an hour of my life doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, from a client experience angle, if I can just cut out that meeting, even having to put it in myself and it automatically links from my bank and the bank tells them how much that is. Yeah. How much of a barrier does that bring down for that? But also what it does from an advisor point of view as well is you can tell when clients are telling porkies. So, for example, when I used to work in financial planning, we had clients all the time who would say, I don't spend that much on holidays every year, or I don't spend that much on takeaways every year, and then if they would tell us lies, the cash flow or the whatever it was, the actual financial plan would be a load of bollocks, basically, because it's just not true. It's based on bad data. So what this does is it improves the quality of the data, which naturally improves the quality of the financial plans as well, which is why all of those things there that you just mentioned and what I've just been talking about there are the reasons why we should be excited about open finance, open data, whatever it might be. I think I'm really excited to see how it's progressing, and I think if we can all get behind it and all start using it and all open ourselves up to it, which I know that some really, really good firms are doing, then that's going to completely change the way our profession works. We talk a lot about AI and all that kind of stuff, and all the AI bros out there getting very excited about how it's going to change the world, man, and all that kind of stuff. When in reality, these kind of small things that you do on a daily basis, they're the real things that are going to naturally change the way that financial planning is given.
Absolutely.
And that kind of brings us nicely into the next thing, which you guys mentioned, which is, you mentioned quite a lot about this digital, I'm putting in inverted commas, by the way, for the audience who was listening, digital first generation. Yeah. And I love that term. It's a really, really good term. And it kind of refers to, I was going to say next gen, but I think we can say next gen, but just those people who are highly kind of tech capable, who are, using it every single minute of every day almost. And they're very, very kind of it's almost their main language in the way that they do things. How do you think that? I mean, I know that this is probably not the generation who advisors are really targeting today, but how, from your perspective, how do you think they can start working with them, and why do you think that advisors should be starting to work with those generations as well?
Yeah, well, I wrote a stat down, so I but the facts are 44% of clients are between 44 and 60, and a third are over 60. So, and each year that client age on average in the UK is getting older. And therefore there's an underserved massive potential in younger generations. And the reason we use digital first is because they're natives. A lot of people in this generation have been brought up with technology pretty much since they were born. And therefore they don't just want, they demand technology in kind of the advisory process. And I think, we do say that advisors should be looking towards the digital first generation, but we said it kind of in the opening bit that we really want to adopt a multi-generational approach. So it's not just saying, Lyfeguard or any other platform doesn't work for the incumbent clients. It's more about how an advisor can take the incumbent clients, but also start bringing on, their connections, whether it be their beneficiaries or their kids or their partners. It's about ensuring that kind of advisors they diversify their offering slightly. So it's not a one size fits all approach. Younger generations will want something different. I'd want something different to what you'd want. And I think advisors have to kind of adopt that into the way that they offer advice. And the reason I brought the stats up earlier is because, and it's a massive topic that everyone's talking about at the moment, but the wealth transfer with 5.5 trillion expected to be transferred by 2050. Now, the bit on top of that is the stats show that inheritors don't stay with the advisor on average when they receive the inheritance. And if we go back to the earlier part where we look at a third being over 60, well, if you go 20 years down the line, that's a lot of business lost if kind of these connections aren't made now and inroads not made kind of in the next couple of years. So this is a massive, massive area. And the way to do that is engage the younger generation who typically are kind of digital first. So yeah, I think that's why we use it. I think it's important for advisors to have this multi-generational layer. And I think, using tech and digital tools is a way to engage younger generations and kind of get them on and, kind of into their practice and future-proof their businesses that way, right? It's really important that, they set their businesses up well for the future. And albeit this wealth transfer, it's only just starting. It's now to make the inroads on that, and not in 10 years' time when, everyone's running about I'm losing clients left, right, and centre. Do it now and make sure you kind of, you retain them clients.
Yeah. Sorry, Dan, I was just going to add to that. I think the other thing is as well is about, client, acquiring client acquisition is really quite expensive. Whereas client retention is a lot less so. But if you're using it through the family in the intergenerational way by establishing relationships early on to facilitate this, then you've effectively retained the client and their beneficiaries, if you like. So kind of it just makes sense to get in with a digital first generation. Fraser's age group and younger, and they're all going to inherit a terrific amount of money in the coming decade or so. I think it's 2050. That number was quoted at £5.5 trillion. That's a lot of wonga.
It is.
It's going to need to be carried on and be invested.
It is, and it's a low. We've talked about this so many times on the podcast, but it's a low hanging fruit. I think we hear from a lot of firms all the time saying we've tried to offer a service that works for the younger generations, but it just doesn't. It's either not profitable or it doesn't work or whatever it might be. And it's not that, I don't necessarily, yes, you're exactly right. Something that works for a 65-year-old is not necessarily going to work for a, 35-year-old, because they've got different needs. They've got different, first of all, asset levels, which is a massive contributor to why it perhaps doesn't work. But it's not that they need, why not offer them a different type of service or a different, something. It doesn't even have to be regulated. It could just be their financial coaching side of things, which is a brand new area, which is coming up, or even the kind of behavioral coaching side of things, and getting people in good habits and that kind of stuff. Anything to keep them, or in your case, engage them with technology. Anything to keep them on and to keep them engaged with you, so that when inevitably that big wealth transfer does actually happen, they can't move anywhere else because they can't see anything that offers better service than what the current financial planner is actually doing for them. So I know it's a difficult thing, it is, but we always see it's a huge low-hanging fruit for people that they're just not taking at the moment as well. So kind of just to switch a little bit again, we're covering a lot on the podcast today, but now let's look at client portals, because this is something that you guys are also building into Lyfeguard as well. I've got to be honest, I see a new client portal come up like almost every week, to be honest. There seems to be them launching all the time, and they all seem to do very similar but very different things at the same time as well. So if we get to, and I know that, for example, one of our mutual firms, they're using Lyfeguard for their client portal and it's working really well and that kind of stuff. If we could think, though, what clients actually want from their client portal, what would you say is that? What do you think that clients actually want from a portal from their financial planner?
I can probably answer in one word: is simplicity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As opposed to multiple systems, logins, passwords to remember, or in most cases forget, and just everything that's really referenceable in one place. So the other thing, especially when we're talking about the younger generation, they might be starting off on their pension journey or their first mortgage, but they're not sharing everything with their advisor. So even if the advisor is providing the portal, they should allow the client to do a lot more with the portal that doesn't necessarily include the advisor, because it's a trust game, the advisory market, in my opinion. And it takes a long time to build the trust up. So they may have, little investments over here, a bit of Bitcoin over there. The younger generation are more into that stuff than perhaps me. So it's about it really is about simplicity. I mean, how many times and how many platforms do you log on to every single day just to get access to financial information? For example, lots of them. If you get a few investments with this provider, some with that provider, your pension with your advisor, it's just look, how many apps have you got on your phone that get you into a financial platform? That we've tried to solve that problem through the whole open finance module within Lyfeguard. But actually, the advisor ought to see it as a growing relationship, as opposed to they've got everything day one. So, that type of portal, from my point of view, making the client's life simple. And there's more than that. If they can share that information with their loved ones, their family, even other advisors, then all the better, because really they feel secure then. So the advisor can know as much or as little as the client wants to tell them. But over time, that relation will flourish and grow. And they'll learn more and more about them. So therefore, that's what they need to do with the younger guys is simplicity. And I think even for old fellas like myself, and I'm quite digitally savvy, coming from a technology background, but even my mother-in-law, who's 90 this year, knows how to send a text message on a big button phone, I